What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Striking Gold. Both live on, it's not live on a podcast. That doesn't make sense, but it is live on YouTube. My name's Rob Lowder, occasionally credentialed media covering the San Francisco 49ers for all of you guys. And sitting next to me on the screen or in the podcast booth is KP, Kyle Posey, KP_show, all the good stuff. Let me tweet this out. There we go. KP, before we get started, how are you? How are things? How's your post-NFL draft life?
I'm good. Every time you say that, I think about the last time I went to a 49ers game. The last time I saw them was Lambeau Field, 2024, quarterbacked by none other than Brandon Allen.
That's the last 49ers game you saw in person?
Yeah, man.
Why did you go to Lambeau Field?
I mean, I'm from the Midwest, so like all my people are from there. That was
where exactly are you from?
The Quad Cities, specifically. So, like, I'm friends with a lot of Packers fans, naturally. So,
okay,
that was a good one. That was
I didn't know that.
A good one for me. Yeah.
I just assumed you were an Arizonian.
No, I've been in Arizona since I moved here in like 18. So, nope.
What for? Why did you move to Arizona?
No reason at all. No real reason. We can get into the life story later.
Yeah. That's true. It is. So today it is, and it's a tradition here. If you're new, this is a tradition on Striking Gold. It's a takeaway time. You know, and everybody knows if you've been around here for a while, after every NFL game, it's takeaway time on Striking Gold, and it gets wild. We're talking, especially if they lose, and not only that, especially if they lose in like controversial fashion. Yeah. Man, we'll be 100+ deep in here, and I'm just trying to handle it from everywhere. But we're doing a post NFL draft takeaway time, and judging by the conversation over the last couple of days, there's been no shortage of takeaways from this draft from every corner of the universe. A lot of it I agree with, a lot of it I don't. It doesn't really matter. Let's just jump right into it. Yeah, we don't have any. We don't have any news we need to bring up front, do we?
We are going to spare you from consensus talk. Let's just say that.
Yeah, we won't. I mean, I'm sure it's about to come up, but
it's gonna be the first question.
Right. I'm pretty sure it is. But in a way, there's no chance we get through this without talking about some sort of consensus. So, leading off, a takeaway time regular, Bondatone, KP. Here is me and KP are going to throw the takeaways back and forth at each other. And they might be thoughts or questions, but whatever. So, KP, here's your first one. Bond says, we crushed day one, and then says, in all seriousness, we know absolutely nothing about these guys until training camp. So as much as I think the Niners grabbed their guys way sooner than they should, otherwise known as consensus, I can't judge until we see them play real competition. 49ers seem to go heavy on athleticism. Yeah, every single one of their picks was over a 9 in the green for the athleticism score, yes, except for Carver Willis, I believe. So what do you think about that, Kay? Niners grab their guys way sooner than they should, but can't judge them until they play real competition.
Yeah, I think in this draft, as weak as it was perceived to be, very weak, right? Especially relative to what's coming up next year. It's tough to just get so hung up on they reach for this because – I mean, some teams, we talked about it last week, ESPN's Jordan Reed, he only had 11 first-rounders. So once you get after that, it's kind of like a free-for-all, man. So just get a bunch of athletes. And we talked about it just throughout the season where this team looked slow on both sides of the ball, whether it was in the trenches when Saleh wanted to run a bunch of different kind of games because the D tackles who they drafted last year were not known as movers type. So what do? They go out and get an athletic defensive tackle. In the 2-minute drill against the Eagles, nobody could separate at all. Like they couldn't even get lined up, let alone separate. So,
right. Kendrick.
They don't just draft the 4-6. I tweeted it yesterday. They drafted one of the fastest players in college football in the past 2 seasons. He was timed at, according to Real Analytics, Deshaun Stribling was timed at over 22 miles an hour, which is insane, especially when you consider the fastest player for the 49ers last season is no longer on the 49ers because he was a linebacker and he got traded.
You know what's funny about 22 miles an hour is like he can run through a school zone and be like right up to the speed limit.
Yeah, I was gonna say he'd get he'd get flagged down
he'd get radar just to make sure.
Yeah. So and his speed is real too. So I think you can just go down the line, right? Romello Height. They needed somebody to replace Bryce Huff, the speed guy. They don't really have a speed merchant on the other side of Nick Bosa or outside of just anybody, honestly. So you can understand where they were going from the athletic, just from an athletic standpoint. And I would also say it wasn't just an athletic class. It was like a hyper athletic class. So the RAS, they put all the classes together, and the 49ers were fifth. Next Gen Stats, they put their athletic scores together, and the 49ers were fourth. So in the sense of, hey, we're just going to try to get good football players who fill needs, who fill our depth, but also can run, but also are hyper uber athletic. I thought in terms of that, they did a relatively good job. Of course, there are going to be reaches, and like I don't want to seem like I'm arguing that or downplaying it, but I also think it's so overblown that I just don't really care to talk about it, honestly.
Well, I'm gonna force you. I'm about to like what I don't know what. There's so many memes where like somebody's like eyes are being pried open or somebody's mouth is being held open, and this is me pouring the consensus.
The consensus juice. Do you want to add anything to that, or do you want to move on?
No, I think it's just to recap. Bond said we don't know anything about these guys yet. The Niners do seem to grab their guys way sooner than they should, but we can't really judge them until we play real competition. And if you want to, without expanding too much on his point, I mean, that's 100%. You can't really say anything about these guys other than how they played in college and where the draft world thought they should be drafted. Other than that, where they were drafted and how early they were or how late they were or any of that has absolutely no bearing on what they do as a professional football player, especially when you consider there's so much more to consider from a team standpoint. There's personalities that we don't know. There's team fits that we don't really know what they find important. There's just a lot of things that they consider that we have no idea, and we found out that Deshaun Stribling was one of their gold helmet guys, which is essentially means that he hit every single important element to them, like the person he is off the field, the person he is on the field, the kind of leader he is, the way he plays. So, I think that there's a fun and interesting discussion to have about where guys are drafted and why the consensus should matter. But it doesn't it's not a real thing. It's not it's not a physical thing that's going to hold them back when they're on the football field. It's almost like an economy system. You know what I mean? And there's players have values, and that value isn't real. It's kind of perceived. Sometimes it matters, sometimes it doesn't. So, moving on.
I don't know if you ever caught this just during the draft cycle. Bob McKinn, his anonymous scout stuff. Did you ever read on Go Long? Did you ever read any of those? I don't know if you did or not.
I may have. I don't think so.
If you didn't catch him, Grayson Halton's a prime example of this. So some of the scouts, they said, we think he's going to go in the second round. And then a couple other scouts that he interviewed. So he basically interviews a bunch of anonymous scouts, and they give their take on players at every position and rank them. So Halton was the 8th rated defensive tackle. The first couple of scouts said, oh, he's going to go in the second round. Like, we believe he's going to go at the end of the second round. And then later on, a few other scouts were like, well, his value is really in the 4th, 5th. So to give you an idea, people who work in the NFL are also all over the place on probably the majority of these players. So there's never going to be a true consensus in that sense. Okay, next up, Low Bridge at Low Bridge. He asks, who or whom do you think will see the field the most out of this new batch of rookies this year? So, Rob, you have the rookie draft class. Who do you think is going to play the most?
Looking at it now, I'd probably have to go to Romello Height. I think he's the only one maybe of that group that can immediately slide into a quasi-starting role right away. Like, I guess that's what immediately means. But, I mean, you're talking about the guy that basically steps right in as Bryce Huff's replacement. Bryce Huff retired. He was a speed rusher, an undersized speed rusher, and Romello Height will step right into that role. Now, the 49ers have their, they make their rookies earn their stripes. And they may want him to play behind like Samo. Maybe the 49ers sign, a free agent like a Joey Bosa that I don't think they're going to sign. They do have plenty of cap space though to play around.
If you sign Bosa, you're taking away snaps from Height.
Right. And he was a third round pick, but it's not just a third round pick. He was their second pick of this draft class,
Right.
and I just assume that he's going to see the most snaps out of it. Now, maybe we're kind of there is a reality, an unfortunate reality that everybody's going to want me to knock on wood about, where Deshaun Stribling starts getting big time snaps right away. Not that he's necessarily okay. I'm going to walk that back. One of the values of Stribling is he can play all three receiver spots. He can play X, he can play Z, and the other two are almost a given. I feel like if you can play X, you can do all of them.
Right. That's a great way to say it. Yes, I agree with that.
So the fact that he can play X, he has the size, he has the speed, he has the experience. He played a lot on the perimeter in college. Somebody gets hurt, he's probably the next guy in. Now, Kyle Shanahan does hate the rookies that he drafts for some reason, but at the same time, the 49ers have been known to get like first and second round receivers plenty of playing time. And you can think of Deshaun Stribling as a first round receiver because he was the first pick of the second round and they just kind of took the best trade they have. So, long answer. Romello Height, number 1. Deshaun Stribling, number 2. In the same vein, though, if they view Kalen Black as... Depends how they view him. Is he Christian McCaffrey's backup or is he a rotational guy? Because I think Jordan James is Christian McCaffrey's backup and Kalen Black is kind of like a guy they're just going to squeeze in. But what do you think there, KP? Who's playing the most?
I would say Kalen Black is more like a third down-ish back, like the change of pace back. And James is like RB2. So I think there's going to be a hierarchy of like what they can do and what they can't do. I don't know how often James is going to play in the passing game, and you're probably not going to take McCaffrey out of the passing game, provided he's not gassed and that's not his series or whatever. So I'm pretty fascinated to see how the totem pole on the running backs, how that works out throughout the season. But I think it's Stribling. And I think for a lot of the reasons you said, so he can play every position. They don't have a Juwan Jennings on the rosters. And by that, I mean, they don't have that big 6'3" wide receiver before Stribling who can. So there's a couple tweets a couple plays I need to tweet out and I need to share to really emphasize like why they took Stribling. So if you watch it in the Miami game, on one play, he gets a free access out route, 5 yards. Instead of running out of bounds, he runs right up the field, runs through a guy, gets 5 yards after the catch. On the very next play, he's an inline tight end, like wide off. So basically, he'd be stacked right behind George Kittle. They ask him on a split zone, so inside zone, they ask him to come across the formation and kick out Reuben Bain. Bain blows him up, but there's like no fear. Like he runs into him full speed, gets knocked off.
Leroy Jenkins.
But the fact that he's willing to do that right after he just got tackled and dragged multiple defenders, to me, like you're not going to take a guy like that off the field. You said he can play all positions, or if you can play X, you can play all positions. I think when they go to like 12 personnel too, you're going to want Evans and Stribling as opposed to like a smaller receiver. So I think pretty easily it's going to end up being Stribling. And of course, with the inevitable injuries that somebody's going to suffer along in that wide receiver room. So I think it makes it pretty easy to assume or to come to the conclusion that Stribling, the first pick, the guy that they invested a lot in, is going to get a lot of playing time.
Yep, I agree. Next one from the Big Red Machine. I hope that is a reference to Kane from WWE because that would make me by far and away my favorite wrestler of all time. I was good with all the picks except the value on Kalen Black. I got more comfortable with Stribling the more I read. Jaden Duggar is going to be a stud in my opinion. What do you think the plan is at safety? It can't just be that guy from the Dolphins, right? No, I think that guy from the Dolphins is more of just depth and competing for something in training camp. I'm not even sure that's a final roster guy, but
I don't think so either. So I did a 53-man roster projection today on Niners Nation, and I only put 3 safeties making it, but I assume that 4 safeties just not on the roster right now. Like Malik Mustafa, Jair Brown, Marquise Siegel. And then
they put Sarah Neal last year made the final roster as one of their special teams guys, and he's kind of a both. I mean, that could be a 6 corner and a 4 safety.
Which is what I did. I had Neal making it, I had Hobbs making it, and I think those two do give the team flexibility as far as they're DBs. Like nickel essentially is just safety. Just you're playing closer to the line of scrimmage. You maybe you have to carry the slot wide receiver, but there are a lot of safety jobs that you have to do there. But are they really gonna? I don't want to say waste because I don't want to like talk down on these players, but are they really gonna waste a roster spot on Derek Canteen, Derek Forrest, Patrick McMorris? Probably not. So they're probably going to just wait. Maybe they wait till after cuts, and that's where this other safety is coming from. Maybe, the closer we get, they try to see, if the safeties on the roster can live up to what they think they can be, and if they don't, that's when they make a transaction or another move. But to be honest, I don't know what the move is. I think Mustafa's going to be the guy. I think they're going to give Jair every opportunity to be the guy. But if there's any kind of hiccup, I am surprised that they didn't bring in more competition. But I also think they're telling us, the D line is going to do the heavy lifting. They invested in the secondary by trading for Oso Odigizua. They invested in the secondary by drafting Romello Heights. So I think that's another way to look at it. But still, like, there's going to be times, if that's the case, where Jair Brown's going to be isolated in coverage. Like, there's no way to hide that in the NFL. And same with Malik Mustafa. So that pass rush is going to have to do a lot of heavy lifting if that's the case.
Well, and there's a world where maybe Raheem Morris is just on a kind of a wait and see approach with the safety. It's not that there's anything wrong with Robert Saleh as a defensive coordinator. I don't think I'm not trying to infer that, but maybe Raheem Morris has more confidence that he can make the safeties look better than they looked. Maybe he believes him and Jerry Gray can really help those safeties, and however the scheme changes might help them. And then I don't know how to say your name, Kawachipto. Praying for a June 1st Bates trade, and that's something that's been in the back of my mind. What's his full name?
Jesse.
Yeah, because they drafted 2 quality safeties in the Falcons, and Jesse Bates is kind of still there as he's a stud, and he would be exactly what the 49ers needed. And Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch have always favored veteran safeties. Now, both of the guys they have could probably earn the term veteran now. They've been around for 2 or 3 years, but that wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. Now, at the same time, draft's over. You're going to be willing to deal one of those precious 2027 draft picks for a veteran? If you're going to do it, it better be a guy that's going to be playing, not come in and hang out and be depth. You better be the dude.
So as of now, Jesse Bates, I'm looking at his contract and over the cap right now. His cap number in 2026 is $24.7 million. Obviously, that would change. Yes, he's not cheap, but he only has $1 million in guaranteed salary. If the Falcons were to trade him, they'd have to end up eating $10.75 million. They do get some cap relief on the other end with $14 million. So you can kind of finagle the deal. You can kind of get them down, lower their asking price if you're willing to take on some of his dead money. But I mean, it goes without saying that he would be far and away the best option. He would allow Malik Mustafa to play near the line of scrimmage. Speaking of safeties in general, I know it's not a safety, it's a nickel, but I was watching some of their blitzes the other day, and I think what Raheem Morris will be able to do with Upton Stout is where we're really going to see an improvement. Like his blitz package is basically centered around nickels, and Stout, as we should have seen more. I don't blame Saleh for this. I really blame the injuries along the D line.
Right.
That's where I think we really see him take that next step.
Well, and there was the idea that when they brought in Hobbs's best place so far in his career has been at the nickel spot. Green Bay tried to play him outside; it didn't go well. So you wonder if maybe there's some playing around there between a dime look with 6 DBs and maybe Hobbs plays some safety. I don't know if he's ever played safety. I don't think so. Upton Stout would also be a hell of a safety, but he was so good where he was last season.
Learn something completely new.
Right. It would seem like a step back if they tried to get cute with it. And Howdy said, and this is a good point, hoping the upgraded D-line corrects the secondary woes with a better rush. Everybody's coming, the guys that are coming back from injury. And the guys they added, Romello Height and Grayson Halton, that's a big-time interior pass rush guy that can back up like Osa Odigizua, plays the game similar to Osa Odigizua. Okay, next one. No, you're on the next one.
Yep. Zach Greer, what up, Zach? He asks, what would be the roles for Willis and Cruz, talking about the offensive linemen the 49ers drafted? Do they both fight for the same position, or would one play guard and the other center? What do you think happens here, Rob?
I think from what I've seen and what I've heard about, and I want to give a shout out to Dieter and Hutch. They did a lot of work on these draft prospects, and I listened to them a lot. And I think they were a pretty good resource for a lot of information. So if you haven't listened to them, they really obsess over the draft in the best way. So you can get a lot of good information from them. But I think that Enrique Cruz is a genuine tackle. Like I don't think that's not a guard convert. Like that dude has some measurables, some freakiness to him, some power. He's an athlete. He kind of looks a little like Mike McGlinchey when they drafted him. Just a taller, leaner, like he's got some power in his hands. So I think Enrique Cruz, and I'm going to say this too, I don't think the 49ers are going to be able to cut Enrique Cruz. If they do that, he will get swooped up by another team. I would be very surprised. So I think they're probably going to, if they want to keep him on the roster, I think Enrique Cruz is going to have to be like the backup swing tackle or the backup right tackle. I think Vidarian Lowe is going to be the swing tackle. The 49ers like to kind of have a backup for every position. So I think he's going to make the roster. As far as Carver Willis goes, like I wouldn't be surprised if he's like competing to be the backup center. Like he's such a small, I know he played tackle at Washington, but he's got short arms. He was already expected to convert to guard, and it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if the 49ers were also looking at him as a center, just based on his traits. He's good in the zone blocking scheme, so that's kind of where
I was watching him earlier today against Ohio State, and there were plays where, oh, that's why they want to move him inside, because there was one play where the Ohio State dude just like forklifted him up and out of the play. But there are other times where you can see him like redirect change of direction, and he looked like a superb athlete. He actually looked better than whatever the numbers say he tested. But I agree there as far as center goes. Shannon was kind of talking about what he thought the projected roles would be for this rookie class, and you made it seem like some of the guys they're gonna compete a couple years from now when they have unrestricted free agents, and Jerno is an unrestricted free agent after this year. So it seems like they're planning ahead, and hopefully Carver Willis can kind of use this as a red shirt to understand, the checks, the calls, and get used to playing against NFL players. So you think about it, he's going to be practicing. He's going to be on the scout team going against like Oso Digiziwa and Alfred Collins like all year. So like what better way to really let him learn. Same for Cruz. Cruz is going to be going against Nick freaking Bosa in practice. Good luck with that, big dog.
Nicholas John Bosa.
Yeah, so those two are going to be able to learn on the fly, or I guess just they're going to take their lumps for sure as rookies in practice. We might not see it, but I would say if this time next year, whether it's Cruz or even 2 years from now, whether it's Cruz or whether it's Willis, they get an opportunity. I would say they probably showed pretty well in practice.
Yeah, I think the 49ers probably learned the hard way with, what was his name? Jarrett Kingston. That was a sixth-round rookie offensive lineman that came in, looked like he had something to him, and they tried to scoot him through the practice squad, and he got swooped up, and they haven't had him since. So it wouldn't surprise me and now Enrique Cruz was their last pick, but he was still a fifth-rounder. Fifth-rounders aren't just shoo-ins to cut and put onto your practice squad, especially a tackle with that kind of athletic traits. I think that both of those guys probably have bigger roles in store for them than we probably even realize so far. Alex Faulkner says, what do you think their plan is at safety and tight end after not taking either of those positions in this draft? That's a good question.
Yeah, honestly, I was surprised they didn't add a tight end. So maybe they're really trusting that, Kittle's further along. But at the same time, the play that I was talking about, Stribling does a lot of tight end duties. So I think that's another area where they're either going to live in 11 personnel, and if they don't, they're going to allow Stribling to let them be that like big 11 type, 11 personnel, and he can do the things where he's stacked behind the line or be the Y-off or come in motion and still kick out a defensive lineman. So was surprised by that, but I think Stribling's going to be able to play multiple roles and allow them to basically be big but also be fast, which is why we didn't see a tight end. So, yeah, Jake Tonjes, Luke Farrell, probably going to be special teamers. As far as safety goes, we just talked about that, right? You're probably – maybe they have a deal in hand and we just don't know about it with Jesse Bates. Maybe that's something in the works. But the fact that they didn't address the position kind of – doesn't that make you feel like something's in the works?
you would think that how both of those safeties played last season, that they wouldn't feel comfortable just running it back.
Right.
Neither of them were good. Like, they both had flashes, and I can't remember which one of the regulars said this, but I agreed with him the moment he said it. It always felt like we were putting too much stock into Malik Mustafa's return from injury, and then when he did eventually, and one thing too, he was returning from injury, so maybe he looks marketably better in
Not
this
just
season.
an injury, by the way. Like, he tore his knee, and he tore his knee in the same calendar year.
And they kind of made it seem like they kind of downplayed it. And then as the timeline went on, you're like, it sounds like this was just a complete like repair. So it's a little weird. There definitely could be more at safety, or they could just be running it back. And Raheem Morris might have liked what he saw last season, and he thinks he can work with him, and maybe he's got different plans for him. So the one thing I would say at tight end, though, the one tight end they did add was Khalil Dinkins out of Penn State as an undrafted free agent. He had a 6th or 7th round grade from Dane Brugler, and he's kind of got in. I'm not gonna. One of my most like annoying things that a lot of people do in this content space is like peddle undrafted free agents as they're like the second coming of like they should have been drafted as like this in the 2nd or 3rd round.
I had a 3rd round grade on him.
And I'm not saying that an undrafted free agent can't come in and make waves. Like, I would root for those guys harder than anybody else because they're coming from way behind. But he's got some stuff to him. 6'4" and a quarter, 251. He's a very good blocker, and he was kind of just underutilized as a pass catcher because when you watched him catch passes, he looked natural. He was moving pretty well. His 40 time was a 4.72, which is respectable for 6'4", 250 pounds. Dane Brugler says Dinkins has the athletic traits and flashes to earn the promising label as both a pass catcher and blocker. His best football should be ahead of him. He can find NFL success if he lands with a team willing to cultivate his talent. And let me tell you, with the talent the 49ers don't have at tight end, they better be willing to cultivate somebody. I don't care if he's an undrafted free agent, man. Like Khalil, somebody like that showed the flashes he showed, like, give him a chance. What are you losing out on? Like, Braden Willis? Like, no offense to Braden Willis.
That. No offense. Nobody needs that.
Be offended, Braden. Come on the pod and argue your case.
They didn't play Tonjes because they didn't feel like he was big enough to hang in the run game. Like, they refused to play him and Kittle at the same time, which just tells me, okay, he cannot do this one thing that we need him to do. So if they feel like Dinkins could give them a chance to do that at 250, which is their style, right? Because obviously Farrell probably lost all any sort of offensive snaps that he's going to get. So,
he's in the tight end doghouse.
Yeah, yes, the very famous Kyle Shanahan tight end doghouse.
I know,
but I would
it.
imagine Dinkins, if he can block like his size would suggest, and he can offer anything of value in the passing game, it might make Farrell expendable. I think he has one more year on his deal. I don't quote me on that. Let me look that up actually.
Dane Brugler said, as a blocker, Dinkins explodes through his hips and legs to create pop into contact. He shows strength in his hands to strain and finish, although he needs to stay balanced, especially when he is outsized on the edge. His pass catching tape is underwhelming because of the marginal body of work, but he executes on delays to find open zones and adjusts well to the ball outside his frame. So there might be something there. Watch a little bit of Khalil Dinkins if you want. You can watch highlights. It's an undrafted free agent. Make yourself feel great about it. Doesn't matter. I'm just
next George Kittle.
Right. Absolutely. That's what we're saying right now. KP, next one.
Danny asks, Kyle mentioned he thought they maybe drafted 2 players that could start this season. Curious which players' positions you think he was talking about. Who's going to start, Rob?
It depends on what your definition of a starter is. I would still throw Romello Hyde at you because when you're talking about, it's a situational role.
50% of the snaps? At least 50% of the snaps? You don't have to be on the field on the first play of the game to be a starter. It
also depends. Right. No, I agree. That's like saying like sub package guys aren't starters, even though the sub packages are on the field more than the base downs now.
Right.
But it also depends. Like, I don't think Romello Hyde's just going to be on the field as a defensive end. I think that Raheem Morris probably feels comfortable with him as kind of like a Sam linebacker / outside linebacker type. When he's got like a 5-man front, and Romello Hyde is a guy that can do both. He can drop back, he can rush the passer. So I think that he might get more snaps than even I realize. If I had to choose a starter other than that, If I've got to get to 2, I guess I got to go with Deshaun Stribling. Like he might. Who knows what they see? What was the little slot guy they signed? Just total mind fart right now.
Christian Kirk?
Yeah, I mean, they might not see Christian Kirk as a starter. They might see him as like quality depth, a guy that can come in and be. I like Christian Kirk. I would have no problem with them thinking of him as like a slot starter. But what if they want Deshaun Stribling as the starter in the slot, taking the Juwan Jennings role, and so they can run to that side and know they've got competent blocking? So, I guess it's not a creative answer, but it's probably their first 2 picks, Deshaun Stribling and Romello Height. What do you think?
I mean, Kirk's on a 1-year deal for $1.6 million, so it's not like they paid him to come in and guarantee him a role at all. There's no guarantees that he's going to play. I think they can actually that he's going to be around for this year. So, yeah, I think a lot of the same. Where like Height may not be on the field on the first play, but he's going to be on the field on third downs for sure. Stribling, he may not be on the field on the first play, but he might be on the field for the next 2 plays just from the package that Kyle Shanahan calls. So I think I would look at it in terms of that. I don't think there's any doubt that Stribling is going to have every opportunity to play a lot. Is it cheating to say their 3rd round pick, Osa Odighizuwa, is a starter? Because
I think that's clever. I don't think that's cheating. I think that's clever.
So he's going to be – obviously Osa's going to play a ton. But I also think there's going to be some packages if he plays the way he did in college for Grayson Halton. So Oklahoma, again, was an elite defense at the college level. They were insane, and he was a big reason for that. So I feel like they identified that, and they need that interior pass rusher. So Alfred Collins and CJ West, they're not going to play a ton, if at all. I would say they're going to play fewer than 20% of the snaps on obvious passing downs. And if the 49ers offense is going to score like we believe that they're capable of scoring, that means your DTs are going to need to be able to pass the rush passer. So that creates another opportunity for Halton to play maybe like 35, 40 snaps if it does get that way, because Osa's going to play a ton. But who's going to be next to him? It's going to be Michael, and it's going to be whoever else can get after the passer. So that's a long way of saying probably 2.5-ish.
Okay, let's keep rolling. Jordy said, it may be copium, but what's the chances the draft class was way off from consensus because of specific scheme fits or changes they're implementing this season, i.e. drafting Duggar in the 5th because Morris is going to use him like a Swiss Army knife, or athletic offensive lineman for more emphasis on establishing the run versus more drop back passing, etc. Well, I mean, I guess we can... KP, go. This is your question. You start.
I identified Stribling as the most Shanahan-McVay wide receiver in the draft because of his style of play, because his body type, because how fast he runs, and because how hard he plays. I saw people say, like, Mekhi Lemon is their type. What? No. So in my mind, so this gets back to the whole board talk.
They're only saying that because his hair comes out of his helmet like Puka Nacua. That's the only reason he's a Rams receiver.
Yeah, so like it doesn't make sense to me. And again, going back to the whole consensus board, if you're identifying the wrong players as fits, of course they're going to be off when it comes to this player should be drafted here, this player should be drafted there. It's off. So I think there's an argument there. And again, it goes back to the draft just perceived being not strong. So if that's the case, and we're talking about, hey, in my mind, Stribling was one of the 6 best wide receivers in the draft because of how hard he plays. And I feel like he's scheme versatile and can do a bunch of different roles for a bunch of different teams, especially in this kind of offense. So I didn't view him as a reach. I can see why, Kalen Black, I would not argue with anybody about Black being a reach. But then you look at his pro day numbers, and you were surprised that he ran a 4.45. So a lot of people probably were unaware that this was the case. So like there are arguments to be made in favor of all the players that they drafted. Were they reaches? More than likely, yes. Like, again, that's not the argument. I think we should be focusing on, like, will they play? How soon will they play? If they do play, how soon will they make an impact? And like in Black's case, like I use change of pace because I think he can be a guy who can really break a run. Like I think there's no doubt about it. Within his first 20 carries, he will have a 20-plus yard run because he just hits the hole that hard. And there were so many opportunities last year for Brian Robinson to do the same, and he just left those yards on the field. And Black is just not going to do the same with the holes that the 49ers do provide, which I think the offensive line gets a bad rap because the wide receivers blocked so poorly last season. But I don't think that's going to be an issue this year with the size that they added with Evans and with Striblin.
The only thing I will say about the consensus, because that word is specifically in this tweet, so it gives me an excuse to mention it, is
there we go.
One, okay, so I know that a lot of the people in the whole scouting NFL thing, they like to kind of dismiss the idea of a consensus board when they talk about like their own values, which is totally fine. I get it. But you can have a consensus board in front of you during the draft, and you can start crossing players' names off of that consensus board. And surprise, it's going to start from the top and go down. Like, it's not like the consensus board is just this sporadic creation. It's created from all of these NFL draft analyst big boards, and it's averaged out. So then you get a kind of a more true to life. It kind of cuts away some of the outliers where people have people ranked really high or really low. And you start crossing off these names on this consensus board, and yes, there are tons of reaches, but again, surprise, it works from the top down, and the best players are being selected, and you can follow it, and it stays pretty true to it. There was a graph that was sent to me. I think it was Sograz or Too Fresh, one of the two. For some reason, they're like one and the same for me, where it shows how quick, how the consensus board like follows the NFL draft, and it doesn't really start to deviate from it until like later rounds. That's when the NFL actually proves that it's better at scouting than the consensus board is. But in the earlier rounds, the consensus board was like a little bit ahead. And then they would kind of, so point being here, I don't want to go too much because we got plenty of questions left to go. But one, the consensus board, as much as everybody likes to kind of say it doesn't really represent anything, which is in a way it's true, but it holds strong. Well, again, watch a draft and cross off names. They start from the top. Two, it kind of represents an economy system. Like if somebody just went to John Lynch and they guaranteed him, they're like, you can have Kalen Black at pick 90 or you can have him at pick 140. Which do you want? Right. And you would be like, I'll take the 140. It's like somebody asks you, do you want to pay full price? Do you want a deal? And so now there's, again, no way you can guarantee that the player that you love is not loved by another team and is gone by the time you get there. So in the end, if you want your guy, get your guy. But there is a economy system at work here where you might be overpaying and you might be lessening the value of the draft class by just inappropriately judging or valuing players. Like you could have taken a different player, a better player, or whatever you want, a different quality player, and then push Kalen Black one spot backwards. And, but again, you're getting into some real hypothetical stuff.
Yeah.
And again, the problem that I've always had with the consensus talk in regards to the 49ers, their biggest reaches have all been horrible players. So it's not like they're reaching for this just, murderer's row of NFL talent. It's always just, damn, there goes another one. And so you're hoping when they did it in this draft on the Kalen Blacks, you're hoping Kalen Black is not another third-round running back. You're hoping that Jaden Duggar is not this massive reach. No one knows why they took him, and he's out of the NFL in 2 years. You're just so again, it's a complicated conversation. It could be a whole podcast in and of itself. So, KP, you're on the next one.
Okay, Rain Buyer asks, after how last year went with UDFA signings, I'm glad to see the 49ers back to their old ways and sign it. And I'm glad to see the 49ers back to their old ways of signing a lot of them. Also pumped about the guys they signed. I think the 49ers might have had the best UDFA class of any team. Okay, no question there, but let's spin it here. Is there a UDFA that you are excited about? Is there a UDFA? We talked a little bit about it before we got on here.
You already asked me. Jack Bomeister, the punter.
Tell the people why you're hyped.
Bring me the punter. I haven't even gotten a chance to look at the stats, but I saw his name on the undrafted free agent list, and I'm like, let me go look. Of all those names, even the tight end. Even the tight end, I was like, nope, I'm not going to look up stuff about this tight end. I'm going to look up stuff about Jack Meester, the punter out of Texas. And I just happened to find 2 videos titled, "How is no one talking about this?" from a guy named Isaac Punts. He has a 170,000 subscriber YouTube channel. And I haven't watched any of his videos, but if this is a guy with a YouTube channel based solely off of punting, I am going to be jacked out of my mind. But anyways, all his 2 videos was showing of how Jack Meester dominated those games and was constantly pinning the other team inside the 10 and was like the MVP of those games, had a couple punts that would land at like the 2 and bounce backwards, and a couple punts where they attempted to field them, but they'd only lose yards because the hang time was so well. He might actually be a great punter. I have done absolutely no look at the numbers. I have not looked at the numbers at all. I know you looked a little bit. But, and here's Matt Barrows. He said, finally, Meester was a steady college punter who played in 50 career games, averaging 44.5 yards per punt last season. None of them were blocked, with 14 that went more than 50 yards. So and I was watching in these videos him consistently drop them inside the 5, inside the 10. So, if I'm allowed to be excited about a punter, undrafted free agent, and the other guy they signed, Corliss Waitman, he was better than, who was their last punter?
Thomas Morstead, who was not very good at all. He was putting up high school numbers.
Corliss Waitman last season was decently better than Thomas Morstead. And so, but he's not a player that's untouchable. If Jack Meester comes into camp and beats him out, they'll go with him. So what I saw in those brief little videos of a dude that looks like he has a punting channel, respect, I was actually pretty excited. It would be cool to see him win the job.
Yeah, I mean, Barrows, just to piggyback off Barrows' stat, he was booming punts like left and right. So he had a punt of at least 50 yards in 9 of the 13 games just this past season. And most of those were in the high 50s. And he actually reached 64, I believe it was. So if you do get pinned back, he's the guy that seems like he can flip the field. And when you have that leg, hopefully he has some control.
Mentally stable receiver.
Hey, he's a Marine.
Do you have any? Have you looked at the undrafted free agent list? Do you have any on there that you thought were intriguing?
You want
me to list them?
Sure. I mean, I'm looking at it right now.
Okay.
So honestly, not really. I thought the Tennessee guy was interesting just because that would be another run stuffing D tackle. So you're just adding more beef up front.
Bryson Eason.
Kamara. Yeah, there we go. Bryson Eason. Kamara, he was really good in college, but the reason he went undrafted is just because he's had so many injuries during I think he had 2 season-ending injuries earlier on in his collegiate career. So if he stays healthy, if he can buck that trend, maybe he has a chance to hang on at the end of the roster, kind of like Sam Mo's done the past couple of seasons. But nobody really stood out in particular now.
We are not going to be able to come up with this. The 49ers had a pass rusher like 4 or 5 years ago that like didn't fit the mold as a prototypical pass rusher, but he was just maniacal and he was a big effort guy. I can't remember who it was.
Wait, when?
It was like 4 or 5 years ago. Where there's no way we're going to be able to come up with his name. Maybe somebody in the chat will be able to help us out. But it was like 4 or 5 years ago. But he was kind of a rotational starter. Okay. It might have even been at the very beginning of the Kyle Shanahan era. I can't remember his name.
Oh, throwback.
Yeah,
not talking about Ronnie, whatever it was. What was his name? Ronnie Blair.
No. I like Ronnie Blair though. Ronnie Blair's actually a coach on the 49ers now.
Yeah.
But I can't remember the name. It almost like reminded me of the name Carlos Hyde, but it's not. Obviously, it's not Carlos Hyde because it's running back. But his name was similar. But anyways, let's go to the next one. I don't want to hold you up anymore. Okay, so we're on Brian Peacock, host of the Locked On 49ers podcast. And this is a perfect one for me to say to you.
By the way, and I really want to know this answer.
Okay, I'll try and look it up while you're talking about him. Sure. Brian Peacock said, because this is perfect for you, the 49ers should have still taken hold on, wait, your favorite receiver, Chris Bell. The 49ers should have taken Chris Bell at 90 even after drafting Deshaun Stribling. What do you say?
Yes.
Not
even. What are we doing here, Brian? Of course they should have. I think Stribling honestly would have given you more flexibility to be even more patient with Bell. And you can look ahead to 2 years from now, 3 years from now, ideally Bell and Stribling are a part of your nucleus at wide receiver, your core, and you still have Ricky Pearsall. So you don't know what that's going to be like, the wide receiver room a couple years from now. And I still think Bell's special. Obviously, nobody predicted that he would fall. Even some of the floors in mock drafts, he was probably I think 50s. So for him to fall just means the NFL, another example of the NFL having more data than we do. So undoubtedly, I wouldn't have been surprised if they doubled down a wide receiver, but they did not. They took the running back there. Would have loved it for it to have been Bell.
I know. I'm sorry.
But yeah. Okay. Invader 49er.
I found it.
Oh.
Kerry Hyder Jr.
Oh, come on.
That's who I could not remember. Kerry Hyder. My bad. But that, to me, that the Mikhail Kamara kind of reminds me of him. He's just kind of a stockier, doesn't have your prototypical edge frame, but it's just a pure maniacal kind of effort guy. So maybe I'm selling Kerry Hyder short, but that's kind of where my mind went. That's where my mind went.
Hyder did a really good job, man.
Yeah, I liked him a lot. Okay, go ahead. Continue.
Okay. Invader 49er asks, why are we giving grades on a test that hasn't even been taken yet? Rob?
Good. I mean, I don't like draft grades. I don't really care about them at all. There will not be a draft grades podcast on here. The only thing KP and I have done was we went over every single draft pick this organization has ever made, and all we did was really say whether we thought it was a hit or a miss. It's just all draft grades are, if you're talking about consensus, all draft grades are right now is, did you select a guy that was high on their draft board? Right. That's all a draft grade is right now. So I really don't give it any credence, and I don't want people to think that I've made a few tweets about the whole consensus value reaching thing, but it really doesn't have anything to do with draft grades. It's more of just the fact that the 49ers have kind of found them. There's a pattern there, so I don't want people it's a very recognizable pattern. It's not like I'm losing my mind and that's all I think about now. But okay, Jed Adultman. My takeaway, this draft had the potential to be one of the most satisfying to observe for fans considering how badly it is received. KP, thoughts? Well done.
Jed, thank you. This draft had the potential to be one of the most I agree with that. So for me, as somebody who was obnoxiously high on Stribling, I'm going to be obnoxious to everybody who was talking down on this pick.
When the first thing you said, when I said it's Deshaun Stribling, you're like, man, it feels great to be right.
But at the same time, I could look really dumb because if he doesn't pan out.
True.
If for whatever reason, that's another thing. At his size, I feel like he is, I don't want to say injury proof because that doesn't exist in the NFL, but he's going to be able to withstand a lot in my mind. So I agree wholeheartedly. If Romello Height comes out and has the start of the season like Bryce Huff did when he was playing with Nick Bosa, who people don't like, it was a long time ago, but he had a few sacks out of the gate. His pressure rate maintained all throughout the season. Why would Height not be able to do the same thing at his seasoned age of 25, playing all those years of college football, but winning athletically, winning in ways that are transferable? So to me, Height seems like a very good fit. I don't think that was viewed as more of a reach. I think most people are really hung up on Stribling and Black just because they did not feel like those were 33 and whatever 1090 or whatever it was. So even if Black is the kick returner, for example, which I think he has a chance to be, if he is able to flip the field a couple times in the first half of the season, if he's able to break one, if he's able to have just explosive carries, I feel like that would be a really good opportunity for the 49ers or for 49ers fans to throw that in everybody else's face. Oh, this is a guy that we weren't supposed to take. This guy with all these long runs. If Stribling has big plays or has blocks that spring Christian McCaffrey after their wide receivers just didn't look interested in blocking, honestly, last season. There are a lot of different ways for this draft to fall, for it to be very satisfying. For all of the talk about reaches, we just talked about Halton. Some guys thought he was going in the second round, but there's been no sign of talk about that because that obviously doesn't fit the narrative, right? So no, I agree, Jed. This, for a lot of people, this could be a very satisfying draft. Okay, Sograz, he asks, what's the impact in 2026? Stribling and Black are likely to play minimal. height could be a get, but carrying the edge rush 2 role is a big ask, which is very true. We've seen the 49ers invest a lot in this role and not get the returns that they're hoping for. He says, I do like the look of the D-line now, though. Don't like the age gambit. Tough to sell on second contracts for guys who are 29 at the time of extension. Fair. Okay, Rob. So the question at the top, what's the impact look like for the rookie class in 2026?
We've kind of touched on this as we rolled along, but I think Deshaun Stribling kind of sees like a part-time role, kind of like Ricky Pearsall right away. Didn't he have like something like 500 yards in his first year? Let me open it up right here. He was obviously dealing with injuries. He only played 9 games.
That Tampa game, he came out swinging.
Right. I could see something now Pearsall is different because he had his offseason struggles. He took a round to the chest and lived to tell the tale, which is pretty impressive. But I could see Deshaun Stribling having like a 400 or 500 yard season with maybe 2 or 3 scores, and I would think that would be perfectly fine. I could also see somebody getting hurt. I'll knock on wood for you. And him having a much bigger role because Kyle Shanahan could move him around and can place him where he wants him, take advantage of his skill set. Romello Height, again, I think he's going to go straight into the situational pass rusher role to some extent. He might not, he might rotate in with somebody. Michael Williams might be in his spot or at the DN spot during sort of base downs, and then Romello Height comes in. So he may be just situational, or he might be in there a lot more than we think, just based on the fact that Raheem Morris might like him more as a linebacker, kind of like a lesser Jalen Walker type of guy. Kalen Black, again, he's just kind of a situational backup at this point, but if someone gets hurt, last year was like the first time the 49ers haven't used a ton of running backs in a while. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if he got significant snaps because he's coming in. I understand he was a reach, but I understand what the 49ers saw in him. He's a very pro-ready running back. The way he plays running back is very pro. Any running back that really, when an NFL team says this running back is pro-ready, they're talking about his pass protection. Can he pass block? Most running backs cannot. So if an NFL team says a running back's pro-ready, other than having an insane skill set like a Jeremiah Love or something like that, Bijan Robinson or something like that, it just means that they can actually be in there on third down, and if they're not running a route, they can protect the quarterback. So Grayson Halton, rotational. Carver, I think Carver Willis and Enrique Cruz are just backups, save a crazy injury designation. Ephesians Price Hawks kind of in the back burner, kind of flying under the radar. If the 49ers don't like what they see from Renardo Green during the offseason, if they don't feel like he's got his shish together, then that's a 4th round cornerback with a really interesting skill set. And I could easily see them going, all right, let's give the rookie a shot. What do you think, man?
I watched Price Hawk today too, so I basically just watched Washington against Ohio State. So you got to see him go against Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate, and it looked like, I know, not the easiest challenge. So in that game, he did not look like a player that I would want to be playing as a rookie, which 4th round pick probably shouldn't be playing as a rookie as it is. I would add to what you said about
Jeremiah Smith is also going to come into the NFL and make seasoned professionals look like that as well.
He's going to destroy everybody. Yes, he's going to Okay, this is not a Jeremiah Smith podcast. We, though, are talking about Kalen Black as well. And you were talking about him just being pro-ready. The way that when I was watching him, he reminded me of the way Kyle Shanahan would talk about Sky Moore as a returner, where he just hits it 100 miles an hour. So that's what Kalen Black did. And because he runs that way already, because his style is that way, I think that's going to give him the leg up as far as like RB2 goes. It helps that, he's probably a full step and a half faster than Jordan James, but that explosive ability and that mindset of, hey man, I'm going to hit it no matter what. I'm going to, if there's a hole, I'm going to run through it as fast as I can. That's him not leaving yards on the field, and that's him staying out of the negative. So I think that will give him an opportunity.
You know what else I like about Kalen Black? He has a little bit of that Kyler Murray, a little kid that's in trouble run, like the little little strides, he's still running fast, but he's like, oh, you get your ass over
10 steps to go, like 10 yards.
It's like that huge acronym that you've seen that it's like I think it was kind of a black culture thing, but it definitely applied to me too. But it's like GYAMF in the mother. You know what I'm talking about? Get your ass in the mother house before I. And that when I watch Kalen Black running, I think of that acronym. Get your ass in the.
Oh, that's.
Do you know what I'm talking about? That
I know
huge
exactly
acronym.
what you're talking about. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. I was so proud when I figured that out. I was like, yeah, I've heard that a couple times. I've heard that a couple times. I grew up in the country, man. I heard that quite a few times. Okay, so
yeah, moving. A lot of these look like some of the rest of the questions are kind of a bit repetitive. Too Fresh, for example, says not going to talk about all the reaching because that was beaten to death over the weekend.
True,
says,
true.
In parentheses, I was swinging the sledgehammer, Triple H style. Good for you. I know that Kalen Black's pick was hated, but I love the player. Hate the value. But as a player, he's so fun to watch. Strong, physical, high character. So back to the pass protection thing. He doesn't just like know how to pass protect. A lot of these running backs, like they don't even know where to go. Like they don't even know like what side to go to, who they're looking for if they do go there. When I was watching Black, I saw him like scanning the field. You can see him processing. You can see him not just processing, but once there was nobody, he would look for work and he would go try to block a defender. So in my mind, that is a sign of somebody who is very ready. So like I like that from him. I would also imagine again, like he should be able to help out on special teams. He should be able to give McCaffrey a breather, even and allow the 49ers to actually throw the ball when McCaffrey's not on the field, which they did not feel comfortable doing last year.
Well, and I need to go back and watch his earlier college games because he looked like a great pass catcher in those clips from the Senior Bowl, Shrine Bowl. I can't remember which one it was. Weird that he did not get a combine invite. He had over 1,000 yards and he was on the national championship team. Why did he not get an invite to the combine?
And he was at the Senior Bowl. Most of those dudes get a chance at the Senior Bowl. So
right. A little weird, but yeah, I think Too Fresh is on it here. I think that you can not like the value. You can hate the process, but not hate the players. I think the 49ers probably, they had like 3 4th-round picks at the time, I think, maybe even 4. There's a very good chance they could have gotten Kalen Black with one of those. But I will say this. You tell me this, KP. If I switched Kalen Black and Grayson Halton and made it to where Grayson Halton was the 3rd rounder and Kalen Black was the 4th rounder, would everybody be magically okay with that Kalen Black pick?
I feel like there's no doubt about it, right? I feel like all the hate would just like shift back to Stribling, and Stribling would be taken too early.
Like, but everybody grab your pitchforks. We're going over here.
Yeah, again, Halton was supposed to go in the 2nd round. Like a lot of mocks had him going in the 2nd round or at the beginning of the 3rd. So like, you can do whatever the hell you want to. Like if you want to like interchange the draft picks and make them
I feel so much better now.
Right. Like if you want to put them in a selected slot and so you feel better, go for it. I think it's more about the roles. Like that should not matter right now, right? Once they're in the building, it's more about what they can do and how quickly they can contribute. But to answer your question, 1,000% yes. Right.
Well, and that
we'd be talking about Halton's is still more than likely.
Yeah, the Grayson Halton pick would still be good value. And based on where he was expected to be selected, and no one would be able to say that Kyle Shanahan took a 3rd-round running back again because it was a 4th-rounder. So it would have been so different. But as weird as that is, it shouldn't make a difference, but it does. Okay, Billy Boy 49, excuse me. I see Willis, Halton, and Stribling as potential 2026 starters. Are there any other potential 2026 starters in this class? Okay, so a starter we haven't necessarily talked about. You think there's a potential starter in there? Which ones did he say in the question? Willis, Stribling, Halton, and Stribling.
Even Willis, I'd push back on. So I would imagine, like, just for a rookie offensive lineman, it's very tough for them. To me, that's the most difficult. Both O-line and D-line are the most difficult positions that translate.
Kyle puts so much on his centers too. He's put so much on their plate,
and he's not going to start over Brindle, especially not in his last season. Brindle's done nothing to take him off the field. As much as fans hate him, he's been one of their best offensive linemen in the past 2 seasons. So he's going to have to beat out Connor Colby, Robert Jones, Nick Zakelj. I think Willis is the guy who knocks like the Zakels and the Drake Nugents off the roster, but it's still like a depth guy. I think ultimately Robert Jones is going to start at left guard. assuming provided he
I think
stays
so
healthy.
too.
So no, I don't. I think again there's going to be roles for these guys like Holden, but as far as like a plug and play starter, I'd be surprised if that's the case.
I'm not going to give you a Jaden Duggar. I know everybody wants me to say Jaden Duggar. I think that was probably the most out of left field pick, or at least it seems like the most out of left field pick in this draft.
Think he makes the roster.
It would not surprise me. He's just a very odd player. Not that he can't be good. It's just watching. It's like watching a scarecrow play football. If you're looking for a surprise starter, I'm going to go back to Ephesians Prysock. Like, not that necessarily he outright wins the role in training camp, but again, if there are problems with Renardo Green, which I think as a player, Renardo Green is good enough to be a starter, I'd like to see them continue to stick with him. But if there's any sort of weird attitude, assignment, understanding his role in the playbook problems, and the 49ers elect to pull like a trade right around the trade deadline, or that point in trading camp where a lot of people get traded, I don't know what it is. Because obviously the trade deadline's not, or maybe it could go all the way to the trade deadline, but I could see somebody like Ephesians Prysock being a solid backup and then getting his opportunity if just Renardo Green didn't quite pan out. You know,
so I think that's where like all these veterans are going to come into play. Like if there's any kind of hiccup from Green, I think that's where we see like maybe Nate Hobbs gets a chance on the outside. Maybe the guy they just signed, Jack Jones, who's been like he has played in the NFL on the outside. So I think that's where the vets come into play. I would be shocked if the 49ers really went out of their way to put a rookie in early with the expectation. Like last year they used we're rebuilding, but that's not going to be the case this year. I think the offseason moves with Osa Odighizuwa, with Mike Evans, they don't suggest that this is a team that's hoping that they sneak into the playoffs. They're trying to win the division in advance. And I don't think you're going to give yourself the best opportunity by doing that with a fourth rounder.
Right. Okay. Is your turn to read? I think this is technically our last
This
one.
is, and it's a perfect question for you. Michael McVeigh, no relation to Sean. I really wanted Howell picked up Cassius Howell, Texas A&M edge rusher, picked up first, but I don't mind the Stribling pick. With height, I'd like to see him gain more muscle. Totally confused on the third round running back pick. The linebacker last seems interesting. Like some of the UDFAs they picked up. Here's to hoping the best. No question. Just I hope they figure it out.
Those are Mike McVeigh's thoughts. Yeah, I was a big Cassius Howell fan too. My little shadow mock draft, because we talked about it while we were live on here. My shadow mock draft would have been Cassius Howell at 33. And then before the trade, the 49ers elected to trade out of 58. I would have gone Emmanuel McNeil-Warren at 58 rather than trading out with the Browns. And then I would have gone Chris Bell, wide receiver, at 90. So you're still getting a pass rusher. You're adding a safety. And then I'm getting Chris Bell instead of Kalen Black. If I would have traded from 50 to 70, Peacock reminded me of this, it would have probably been Emmanuel Pregnon, the guard. So it would have gone Hal, Pregnon, Bell, or Hal, Emmanuel McNeil, Warren, and Bell. So, and again, those weren't like... hey, N1MX, welcome. He said, hello, Niner fans, first time here. Everybody welcome him in. Pat him on the back. Those weren't like, what do you want to call them? After the fact. I was talking about them on the pod. We were like, who would you pick at this moment? Stuff like that. So we'll see. Maybe history will prove that they should have went with my picks, but if not, whatever. Yeah, everything else that Mike said, we kind of talked about. Again, the linebacker pick last seems interesting. I have no idea what to expect, if anything, from Jaden Duggar. He's just such a weird player. He's got these flashy moments, but the ones that people keep throwing around on Twitter are like when he's untouched, just running from one side of the field to the other. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know how much that represents NFL football.
Special teams to me.
Right, yeah, and maybe that's his path to a roster. But, yeah. The last one on here, it's not really a question. It's just from Carlos D, and it's a picture of Eddie DeBartolo, where someone asked him not that long ago, how long would you hold on to a head coach that if you hadn't won a Super Bowl? And he was like, I wouldn't, or something like he was talking about, would you be okay with this franchise not winning a Super Bowl for this long? And he's like, I wouldn't. But it's this. The tweet says, "Hey Eddie, would you allow your GM and coach to miss and reach year after year without repercussions?" And it shows him saying, "I wouldn't." So, do you think we'll end with this? Do you think that the 49ers should, at the very least, be doing some intense self-scouting in the front office department? Or at the very most, do you think that they should start thinking about a different way of handling the scouting? I'm not going to say, or a different GM. You know, John Lynch can handle the VP stuff. Do you think that there's any need to go that far?
So I don't think they're thinking in those terms. I think they're thinking in terms of, we just made the playoffs. Why would we get rid of our GM? We're 2 years removed from the Super Bowl of that we were winning heading into the second half, right? So why would we get rid of our GM?
No, I was waving because he said, who are these two? So I just waved at him. I was like, hello, this is us.
Yeah, no, I don't think that they're thinking in those terms, man. It goes without saying that this team is missed on the draft picks and some high-end ones, which is where most of the focus is. So that gets a lot of hate, I would say, or just gets a lot of attention. Hate's not the right word. It gets a lot of attention because they miss on the early ones, the big swing and misses. But I think just the way that they've won, it's easy to convince yourself, like, why would I change my process if we're always in the playoffs? Which is a faulty train of thought. I'm not debating that at all. But I feel like if John Lynch was going to get out, it would have been a few years back when that Amazon stuff was popping up. So could they? Sure. Are they thinking in those terms? I don't think so, especially the way they've been winning this decade. Since 2019, it's one of the most winningest franchises in the NFL. So that has to take into account, I would imagine, when you're thinking big picture. What do you think? Do you think 3 years from now we're going to be talking about the 49ers hire a new GM?
There's so much.
Kyle Shanahan's not going anywhere.
There's so much like possible friction that could come from that. I'm not sure it's worth poking the bear, and the bear being Kyle Shanahan, because as much as like what was his name, Warren Sharp, as much as he went after John Lynch, the big missing part of that piece was you have no idea which one of these picks are John Lynch and the scouting department versus Kyle Shanahan and the coaching staff. The 49ers probably involve their coaches, I would be willing to bet, more than any other team in the NFL into their picks. And their coaches that are constantly leaving because the team is really good and the coaches get poached. So like
not just like poached to be like coordinator, head coach too. It's like that matters.
Right. And it's like Robert Saleh got to pick, and it's not that a player handpicked by a coach can't be great, but it's like the fact that Robert Saleh may have had an input in the draft picks from last year and he's already gone shows you kind of how fickle that way of thinking is. Yes, coaches should 100% have a lot of input because they're the ones that have to coach that player and they have to make them work in their scheme that's on the field. And in the end, the product that's on the field is the most important thing. But they're temporary. Whereas, you know, a lot of these players outlast the coaches. Think of how many coaches have come and gone while George Kittle's been there. You know what I mean? It's like if you're trying to find foundational players or long-term players, then it's tough to think of a coach having that much sway. But a lot of it just seems random, and I'm not in the building. I don't have any proof of stuff, but the things you hear on how the 49ers, I mean, they even said it last year where they were arguing in the room about who they were going to pick. I think it was the Jacob Cowing pick. And it came down to like the last couple seconds. So like, you know, they don't even have their minds made up on the day in the moment. So there's some weird things out there. I just don't think that I don't think that Jed York's going to be able to tell Kyle Shanahan, look, man, as much as it's still a compliment to Kyle, I don't think Jed York would be able to say, Kyle, I just want you to coach. Let me take your ability to have input on these players and let's just give it to a full-on GM. I'm going to promote John Lynch to run the 49ers organization, and I'm going to hire a GM, and then I want you to just worry about coaching. And I don't know how happy Kyle Shanahan would be about that.
Right.
You know, so that's where I sit. It's like, as much as I do think there needs to be some tweaks, I do think there needs to be some heavier self-scouting on tendencies. For some reason, they acted like they had no idea that they keep taking third-round running backs. Like you can't not know that.
Who? What?
You can't not know that. So I think there needs to be some adjustments. I think that they can learn. They're all smart people. Everything I hear from their building when they talk about players, you know, I'm impressed by the people that are there. But I think they can adjust. I think they need to adjust the way they look at players a little bit. I think we've had long enough track record now, going all the way back to, I don't know, 21, 22, where it's just been not great, Bob. And there's been a lot of weird picks and a lot of weird decisions, like trading up to third overall and not necessarily knowing which quarterback you were going to pick at the time. That's weird.
Fun.
That's weird. Surprise, it didn't work out. So, KP, is there anything else that we need to speak of before we sign off? Got 21 people in here hanging out.
Thanks everybody for coming through, but I think we're good here, right? We hit on every draft pick, every draft topic. We're good.
Yeah, we went well over an hour, and the plan is KP and I have decided to do twice a week. We're going to do Monday and Wednesday now. So we're going to try and shorten the pod a little bit because KP's not only going to be on here just a week. He's going to be on here twice a week now. But obviously we kind of had to do away with that today because that's just kind of how mailbag and takeaway time stuff goes sometimes. I know from experience. So everybody that's hanging out in here, appreciate you guys. Thanks for hanging out in the YouTube channel. I appreciate it. Like we're just starting this thing off. We're already over 150 subscribers and we're moving right along. So I appreciate the fact that you guys are in here. Thanks for contributing to the conversation with the comments. Filthy Casual, you are very, very welcome. He said thanks for the show. And yeah, we will be back on here Monday, I guess. Wednesday, and then our next one's going to be Monday. Unless something comes up, we could always hop on here at any time and do a quick little news breakdown. So appreciate everybody who was hanging out. Make sure you make sure you subscribe so the channel keeps growing and all that good stuff. And if you're on the podcast, Spotify, iTunes, if you don't mind, leave us a 5-star review because it matters and it looks good. And I think we did it. I think we did the damn thing. So without further ado, that's KP. No, I gotta get my point right. This way, right? That's pointed at you.
Oh, wrong way. Yep, that way.
Yeah, there we go. That's KP. I'm Rob. This is Striking Gold, and we're signing out.